Hello class, this is a video tutorial on trigonometry part 6, and in this video we'll be looking at angles of any magnitude. In this video we're going to look at the first half of the characteristics we need to understand, the sign of ratios of any magnitude. Before we continue, you should be familiar with everything, with the relationship between trigonometry and the unit circle. So let's get straight to it. To understand trigonometry using angles of any magnitude, meaning angles that are from negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay, because so far we've been looking at angles that are less than 90 degrees, but larger than 0 degrees. But now we're going to extend that idea to angles that are larger than 90 and less than 0. And to understand this, we're going to summarize it into two parts. One, the signs of the value of the ratio, whether the result is positive or negative, and the equivalent quadrant 1 triangle. We could just memorize this chart here, okay, but that's not really understanding the mathematics, and I'll just summarize what this chart means now. This means if we had, let's say, sine of theta, and theta is in between 0 and 90. So for example, let's say we had sine of 85. Sine of 85 is between 0 and 90. So that is going to be a positive result, but we don't know what it's going to be. It'll be, I believe, 0.9 something. If we do the same thing for cosine of 85, it'll also be positive, and tan of 85 will also be positive. So that's what this chart means, and we can apply it to different angles here. So in this quadrant, if we had sine of, let's say, 150, it would be positive, whereas cos or tan of 150, we would have negative answers. Likewise with this one, and likewise for this one. A quick way of remembering this is all stations to central. So all stations to central. In this quadrant, all the angles of sine, cos, and tan will be positive. In this quadrant, only sine will be positive. In this quadrant, only tan will be positive, and in this quadrant, cosine will be positive. All stations to central. Now, it's one thing to memorize this chart, but it's another thing to understand what it means. So, let's get to understanding. As we already know, in order to do trigonometry, what it really means is to starting from our initial side, we rotate and then stop at any angle that we want. And then from that angle, we generate a 90-degree triangle. And then from here, if we take theta, sine of theta would be y, this y value here. Cos of this angle would be the x value here. If we do the exact same reasoning and we go into, let's say, this quadrant, so once again, we're going to start on the initial side. We're going to start rotating beyond 90 degrees, and let's say we'll stop here. The angle here is clearly greater than 90 degrees, so theta here is greater than 90 degrees, but it's less than 180. And as you can see from here, we can generate a 90-degree triangle even in the second quadrant. Now the theta we're going to be using is this equivalent angle here. We'll get to that in a moment. And we do the exact same thing. To do sine of this angle, we look at this value. And to do cosine of this angle, we look at this x value. What do you notice about the y value here? and you see that it's positive. Hence why sine of this angle is positive. Likewise, if we take the cosine of this angle, the x value here, it's to the left of the origin. Because remember, positive values are here, so that's 1, sorry, no. Oops, sorry, whoops. It's x. That's 1, and that's 2, and this is 0.5. As you can see, going this way, we have negative x values. Hence why, if we do cosine of any angle here, it's going to be negative. Now the reason why tan would be negative is because tan of this angle is going to be y divided by x, opposite over adjacent. And because x is negative, it's going to be y divided by some negative x value. Hence why we have tan of theta in this quadrant to be negative. Let's apply the same logic now to the other quadrants. So here we go. Once again, we're going to begin at the initial angle, always starting from here. And if we rotate until we get beyond 180 degrees into this quadrant, let's say we stop here, and then where we stop, we generate a 90-degree angle, a 90-degree triangle, and we observe what the values are for this theta angle. As you can see, this angle beginning from the initial is greater than 180 degrees. So now let's take a look. Y at this point is negative because it is below the x-axis. So this is our y value, and this is our x value. Hence why, if we take a look, sine of this angle is going to be negative because the y value is negative. In the same reasoning, cosine of this angle is negative because x is negative. It's to the left of the origin. And y tan would be positive because if you do y, which is negative, divided by x, which is negative, that's negative divided by negative, it's a positive value. And this reasoning is the exact same for if we had done this in the fourth quadrant. So once again, we're going to begin like this. And if we rotate all the way around until we get to anywhere in this quadrant, let's say we stop here. As you can see, from the initial all the way around to our terminal angle, we have a reflex angle, and the right angle triangle drops down like here. We're going to take this angle here. Notice one last time that this y value is less than 0, and this x value, well, this x value is positive. So hence why we have this chart as follows. So I hope that gives you a bit of an insight. So let's just do a few examples here just to get our heads around this. Here we go. So let's determine whether the following trig ratios are positive or negative. Okay, we don't need to know what the value is. All we need to answer is positive or negative. Well, sine of 150, if we take a look here, it's between 90 and 180. That's quadrant 2. So this is going to be positive. Cosine of 210. Well, 210 is somewhere in this quadrant. And in this quadrant, cosine is negative. So this is going to be negative. Tan of 315. That's in this quadrant somewhere. Tan in this quadrant is negative, so this is going to be negative. Tan of 130, that's in the second quadrant, that's going to be positive. I'm just going to copy this. Sine of 192, that's in the third quadrant. It's going to be negative. Cosine of 45. 45 degrees is in the first quadrant, so anything in the first quadrant is positive. Tan of 210 is often what I do during an exam if I ever need to remember it. All stations to central. 210 is in the third quadrant, which means tangent is positive. So tan of 210 is positive. Sine 31, that's the first quadrant. Everything is positive in the first quadrant. Cosine of 306, that's in the fourth quadrant. Let's see if you can remember it. If you answered that cosine is positive, you are correct in the fourth quadrant. So this is positive in the fourth quadrant. So I hope that gave you an insight into the signs of trigonometry of angles of any magnitude. Hope to see you in the next video. Best of luck.